What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Forward Progress, Week 1, Best Bets Edition, live here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network, presented by Fanduel. It's the 2024 season. We are ready to go. I am Rob Pizzola, alongside our crew, a couple usuals from last year. We got Suma in the top right-hand corner, Hitman bottom left, and we welcome in Judah Fortgang at Throw the Damn Ball on Twitter in the bottom right corner. Fellas, good to see some familiar faces and a new one. I'm pretty stoked for NFL season. I know that Hitman's not going to be stoked about what we're going to get to in just a second here, which is a recap of last year, which we got to do. We got to do for transparency purposes. First and foremost, thanks to everyone in the chat already. You can use the chat throughout the show. We do see the comments in real time. A lot of familiar faces from last year and some new ones from this year as well. So good to see you, Connor, E-Colt. We got a Pab Rizzola going on in the chat as well. Don't know what's going on there, but we got a lot of people in here as well. This is going to be a very similar show to last season. We're going to cover 4 games that we each have an opinion on in the early going here. We'll debut a new segment this year where each of us is going to give out a future that we like every week, and this is going to continue through the entire season. And then we're going to end the show with a best bet from each one of us as well. But before we do, let's get the season started with some transparency. Hitman offered me an undisclosed amount of money not to show this graphic here, but as a man of honor, I'm going to do it. Last year, our Pizzola at the top of the leaderboard, plus $475. Hitman lost basically the equivalent of a trust fund on the show last year. However, I'm going to go to bat for him. We're going to start this season off on a note. Hitman's leans, very strong. Prop plays very strong. We're going to have some prop stuff on Forward Progress this year on Saturday. But Hitman, we got to do better than 3-16 this year. I mean, I know you like Stone Cold Steve Austin 3-16, but that's not the record you're going for.
What do you want me to say? I got nothing. There's no insults I could throw back. There's no excuses I can make. I have nothing. Just let's put it in the past, guys.
Yeah, as my camera is doing some work here to get me into HD mode. All right, let's get into it over here. No more, fooling around. Just as a reminder to everyone as well, though, if you do want to see all of our picks, they're tracked under Forward Progress HQ on BetStamp for full transparency purposes. But let's start with game number 1 on the board here. And we're going to take a look at the Tennessee Titans and Chicago Bears. A lot of excitement from Bears fans this season. They played well in the second half of the year. They enter this season with a franchise quarterback, potentially some big upgrades at receiver. They'll look to get their season started on a high note. They welcome the Titans into town. Expectation for Titans are very different. They dominated the AFC South under Mike Vrabel for a few years, but now they're expected to be at the bottom of the division. The hope is that Will Levis can establish himself as a franchise quarterback. Current betting market at FanDuel right now. Bears laying 4.5, minus 105. Total in the game is 4.5. Suma, we'll kick things off with you this season. Titans and Bears, break it down for us.
Yeah, I'm looking towards the road dog here. And I think it all starts with me being slightly higher on Tennessee this season than the market. I think Will Levis going into his second year bump to be expected. I don't think that he was terrible last year. He obviously had some issues and struggles, but I think now with a real HC/OC, Brian Callahan, who I have some confidence in, especially what he did with a backup quarterback last year. I have also high confidence in that receiving group. I think that the O-line still has some major question marks, but still got improved over the offseason, in my opinion. And when I look at this Bears defense, I think they have been a little bit overhyped. Second half of last season produced a ton of turnovers. But when you look at the depth chart right now, yes, they have some intriguing pieces in the secondary. Linebacking group is decent, but outside of Montez Sweat, I mean, I don't really see how they are going to crush that Titans O-line all day long. I think that Callahan will come out with a lot of in smart dink-a-dunk, some screens, and that then let Will Levis occasionally throw the deep ball, let it rip. And I'm not sure that I can trust the Bears defense to shut down that Titans offense. On the other side, Caleb Williams, there's the chance that I don't want to say the next Mahomes, but that he might have a very, very special rookie season. Preseason was very promising. Wide receiving group, one of the best in the league. But it's a rookie. It's a rookie quarterback in his first ever NFL start. And with a new OC for the whole offense, and I just am in wait and see mode. I really need to see how well they can get things rolling. I'm also not that sold on the offensive line. Titans defense, definitely not top tier, but they are solid and they might pose some challenges. And that all being said, my number on the game is closer towards 3. I think 4.5, 4 is value, and yeah, I'm rolling with the Mayo Coffee guy in his first 2024 NFL start.
Yeah, there you have it. Suma likes the Titans in the game. He's going to be eating bananas with the peels on the weekend, stirring mayo into the coffee on Sunday morning as well. Whatever he can to get Will Levis going in that game. Judah, I know that you had a particular lean in this game as well. Are you siding with the Titans as well, or do you think that the Bears are the side here?
Yeah, I'm on the Titans here. I think for some of the same points as Suma mentioned. Number one, I just have a stronger kind of offseason prior on the Titans. Will Levis in particular struggled if we kind of break up the component parts of his play to in structure. That is kind of plays that are more schemed. He was towards the bottom of the league. I think a lot of that had to do with their offensive coordinator last season and the talent that they had. And I think that kind of bringing in Callahan, bringing in Calvin Ridley, who still shows up pretty well in a bunch of kind of underlying metrics will elevate this team, not to mention probably some upgrade on the offensive line, even if it is still a weak unit. And then to kind of get to the matchup here, I think that the Bears certainly pose some problem on defense and are probably a good matchup, but Will Levis kind of has the ability to mitigate that. He actually, when scrambling, and that doesn't just mean scrambles that cross the line of scrimmage, but plays where essentially you break the pocket, he was actually second in the NFL in EPA, and that's exactly the sort of thing that allows you to buy time to kind of mitigate the effects of a good secondary that the Bears have. And I don't think the Bears are going to have a particularly great pass rush. There's nothing on paper that would suggest that they're going to be able to generate pressure. None of the data from last season suggested they'll be able to generate pressure. So that kind of coalesces in the first part of the Titans probably going to be better in structure and allowing them to remain in structure by virtue of this matchup. And then even when Will Levis has to go outside of it, that can kind of mitigate the effect of what the Bears present. On the flip side, I completely agree with Suma. It's a rookie quarterback. 4.5 points is a lot. We really don't know much about Caleb Williams. The stuff that we do know and that is translatable from college to the pros is that he struggled a bit in sack avoidance. That is the strength of the Titans defense. They still have a lot of good players on the defensive line in Arden Key, Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry. The Bears offensive line is still a weak spot that can still pose problems. At 4.5, there's just a lot of kind of projection of what Caleb Williams can be. And that isn't to say that he can't get there, but just kind of looking at the base rates, I like the Titans here.
All right, that's two opinions on the Titans here. Dan Rivera in the chat says, rookie quarterbacks are abysmal game one. Let's see if that holds with Williams. I'm curious, Hitman, if you put any stock into like these preseason rookie QB trends, any of this stuff in week one, or do you think that's already factored into market?
I don't know, not a ton. I mean, I think it's just should be by a case-by-case basis. You know, some rookies are more prepared to play first game of their career than others. I think that Caleb Williams is probably the most prepared that we've seen in a long time, as one of the best prospects that has come out in at least a few years. I lean towards the over in this game. Just to start with the Titans. The Titans ranked second to last in situation neutral pass rate last year. And now Brian Callahan obviously comes from the Bengals, where they ranked second. Now, obviously a big difference in personnel when you have Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. And in Cincinnati, he had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. But all the offseason moves that the Titans have had has just shown that they're pretty adamant about throwing the ball more, being more aggressive. with 3 wide receiver sets. They added Tyler Boyd in the offseason. They added Calvin Ridley. They brought back DeAndre Hopkins when some people thought that he could be a cap casualty. And Will Levis, he's kind of like a mini version of Jameis Winston a little bit, with the fact that he had the highest turnover-worthy throw percentage last year, but also the highest hero throw rate, according to Football Insights. And just to further expand on that, 22% of Levis's throws last year were 20 yards or further down the field. The average in the league was 11.7%, and the next closest qualified passer was 14%. So this is one of the biggest gunslingers in the entire NFL on a team that wants to throw the ball more. And Chicago, on the other side, Shane Waldron takes over as the offensive coordinator for this team. During his 3 seasons running Seattle's offense, they were 6th, 7th, and 8th in situation neutral pace. They finished 4th, and 6th in no huddle rate, and that's with Pete Carroll as the head coach, who is probably typically trying to slow things down, and he was still able to get that type of pace off. And obviously the Bears offseason moves, bringing in Keenan Allen, drafting Rome Odunze, signing Gerald Everett, signing a running back that some people consider more of a scat back in DeAndre Swift. It just seems that it's going to be a way higher throw rate that Chicago has had in the past, and a way faster pace as well. So I lean towards Chicago, Tennessee over 44.5.
Yeah, I don't mind that either. Obviously, it's moved up a little bit over the past week or two. Actually, you probably had a little bit to do with that, Hitman, as well. But it does seem to be a popular total in market right now. I like this comment from Arthur Dominguez here. Rookies usually get dumped into a dumpster fire of a situation. Caleb's in a solid offensive environment to succeed. Completely agree with that. But I'm with Judah and Suma on this one. I think this is a little bit too big of a number. My concern is more so with the Bears defense, as Judah outlined. I think they're going to have some issues getting to the quarterback this year. And also all this positivity from the second half of the year last year. They were healthy. They got players back, but they generated a lot of their EPA on defense through turnovers. And that's not necessarily repeatable year to year. They finished with 22 interceptions, most in the league. I have concerns about the Bears defense going forwards. And I really like the game plan for this Tennessee offense of being able to spread out 3 wide, good wide receivers, try to get the ball out. Levis, to me, is a guy that we've seen glimpses from Will Levis. We haven't seen him put it all together, but with improved offensive line play, improved receiving core, I think that this is a little bit inflated. I made this game 3.5. I do like the Titans, and this is a very good number at FanDuel, getting that 4.5 on the Tennessee Titans. Now, before we move to our next game, I just want to remind everyone, obviously football's back here. There's no better place to get in on NFL action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, all customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. Honestly, that's a great offer. FanDuel is the only book where you can get it. But nowadays, with the prices of watching the NFL just exponentially going up year over year, $5 to get a 3-week free trial is really good. FanDuel is a great product. I've used it ever since it's been in Ontario. I'm a big product guy coming from my background at the Score, and they just have a ton of options. The app is great. So all around, I would highly recommend FanDuel. You don't even have to leave the app to access real-time stats and data to help you make decisions with your live betting as well. So just visit FanDuel.com/forward-progress. Download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/forward-progress. All one word. You must be 21 plus, 18 plus in DC, present in select states. Offer ends September 22nd. After your 3-week free trial, the full price of NFL Sunday Tickets automatically charged seasonally. You can cancel anytime. No refunds. Terms, restrictions, embargoes apply. YouTube TV base plans required to watch YouTube TV. Redemption requires a Google account and a form of payment. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Extremely important out there. We put out gambling content, but if you do have any issues, 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, on to game number 2 here. We have the Carolina Panthers and the New Orleans Saints. Again, we don't cover the prettiest games on the board, the ones we have opinions on. Carolina had a miserable year last year. They're worst in the league by a mile, but they didn't even get to pick first overall because they traded the pick to the Bears. Big changes in the offseason. Dave Canales comes over from Tampa. Eric Eager comes over from Forward Progress as well. Our boy Eric Eager, VP of Analytics there now. Bryce Young gets some weapons. Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette. They go to New Orleans. They take on the Saints. The Saints have been kind of in this cap crunch situation for years. They seem to be stuck in this mediocre zone. They're expected to get their season off to a good start, though, as they are favored by 3.5 points at home here. The total in the game is at 41.5. Judah, over to you here first. We've seen some battles back and forth in the market here. Some pro groups going in on the Saints, some coming back on the Panthers. Do you think Carolina is potentially in a position to pull the upset here?
Yeah, I think they are. And I think you almost framed this perfectly of like the central question of this game is like, how good is Bryce Young and how much do the offseason changes really matter for the Panthers, right? Like, I think one way or another, this price would look very different if we're playing this out kind of week 6 or week 7 when we have a lot more information. And I think that if you kind of look at where the market's pricing it now, and we're starting to see a little bit of resistance from that, it's almost effectively saying like, this is what would be priced if we were playing in week 19 of last season, which is kind of building in this assumption that Carolina is much more like the 2023 team rather than the team they could be in 2024. And I think kind of part of the base of why I like Carolina is just a stronger prior that this is a formidable offense, or at least there is a possibility of kind of going from what was like 32nd best to 24th best is very different than going from 24th to 16th. And whereas, like, frankly, there's nothing in the data to suggest that like Bryce Young is going to improve, or there is something that is particular about his game. Just looking at the overall situation and seeing the receivers they brought in, Deontay Johnson, whether it's ESPN's open metric, whether it's some of the separation stuff that I work with, he's been one of the game's best separators. Not to mention, it is possible that Dave Canales is this kind of quarterback whisperer. There are kind of more reasons, I think, if we're looking at the asymmetry of risk, so to speak, for Carolina to be a lot better than the market is currently suggesting, just by virtue of the changes and kind of the upside cases of just like rookie quarterbacks do improve going into their sophomore years. That's a function of developing as a quarterback in this league, and oftentimes that projection is not included. I'd also just look at the other side of this game and say that this is a Saints team that's like slowly been atrophying. And I think a lot of this price is baking in a defense that produced at a top 5 clip, but has some kind of fundamental flaws, I think, especially looking at the defensive line, which has kind of diminished their ability to generate pressure. They were a bottom 10 unit last season. I see that to continue to decline. Tyrann Mathieu a year older. Cam Jordan's a year older. Marshawn Lattimore is a year older. These are veterans in the league, and they haven't exactly added much to kind of bolster up that defense. I would also just say on the offensive side of the ball, this might be one of the worst offensive lines in football that the Saints have. There are weak links practically everywhere, and that matters more for a quarterback like Derek Carr rather than someone like Patrick Mahomes. Kind of what we were talking about with Will Levis. If you are the type of quarterback who can kind of create on your own, then it matters a little bit less how good your offensive line is. But looking at Derek Carr, he is certainly a function of the system that he is a part of. And this offensive line really screams trouble to me. And even though Carolina really, really struggled themselves on the defensive side, just by virtue of how bad this offensive line is, I can kind of see them having more pressure than they otherwise would. And that, I think, leaves room for the Saints offense to kind of slow things down, take too many sacks. I see a kind of slow game here where teams are trying to slow it down. And quite frankly, I'm not so certain that Carolina isn't really improved and that the Saints, especially on the defensive side, have not gotten significantly worse.
It's a pretty compelling case from Judah there. Hitman, we all pretty much agreed on Titans Bears in some capacity, or at least leaning the same direction. Are you following suit here with the Panthers?
Yeah, I agree with Carolina. There's nothing I can really say about Carolina from last year. They were the only team that had a worse record than I had on best bets this year. So there's not many stats I can give you from last year make a case for this year. But I like the additions they made in the offensive line, and Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. Deontay Johnson they really needed a guy that could actually win against man coverage. And the Saints do run the second most man coverage in the league, and Deontay Johnson's specialty is winning against man coverage. So I think in particular for this game, it's definitely a big addition. And then obviously the Dave Canales turnarounds of Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield, just hoping that you don't get league worst quarterback play this year out of Bryce Young. But I kind of agree with Judah on everything about the Saints, that a lot of this is just an anti-Saints play. PFF has them ranked the 31st ranked offensive line this year. They lack a ton of options in the skill position group next to Chris Olave as well, especially because Jawan Johnson and Shaheed both missed a ton of camp. And that was a pretty important camp for them, considering that they're installing a completely new scheme this year. And then, Rob, I just challenge you two things. Could you tell me, is there a quarterback that's more sensitive to pressure than Derek Carr behind this offensive line in the league? Probably not. And then, is there a quarterback coach combo that you trust less as a favorite than Derek Carr and Dennis Allen? Derek Carr is 22, 37, and 2. ATS is a favorite. Dennis Allen is 8, 16, and 1. ATS is a favorite. And then obviously the X factor in this game is Eric Eager now of Carolina. We can expect a lot of plus EV situations, or a lot of plus EV decisions from the Panthers because of that hire. And Dennis Allen, not exactly the most modern NFL coach.
It's funny that you say that, because we're kind of joking about like Eager being worth anything to the spread, and he's not. But I actually trust the organization so much more now that he's there. Like, you look at the rest of the division, and the head coaches, typically pretty conservative guys. Todd Bowles, Raheem Morris, Dennis Allen. Dave Canales seems like, I'll call him like a woke coach, where I feel like just by virtue of making a few good in-game decisions, he's just going to put the team in a better position to succeed. And on McNasty asked, any thoughts on Bryce Young potentially being ass? Of course, it's possible, but he was drafted first overall. He was put in a horrible position. You got to imagine that there's the likelihood of improvement is high. I mean, he could be terrible. He could be, but I like Carolina in this game as well. I'm high on Carolina. I'm low on New Orleans. They end up matching up in week 1. I also like to play. I'm not a trends guy, but like divisional dogs early on in the year, there's some familiarity there as well. Full off season to prep. I just really like the situation for Carolina. However, I know that we've been agreeing so far a lot on this show, and Cottage 1100 said, I hope Suma likes Carolina because he and I click on both NFL and King of Queens. I hate to break it to you, Cottage. We actually have a traitor to the Carolina Panthers and Eric Eager on the program today. That's Suma, who wants to make a case for the Saints.
Yeah, I just want to play devil's advocate here. So fundamentally, when we talk about the season outlook, I pretty much don't disagree with anything. I'm just not sure I can trust Carolina in this matchup early in the season or in week 1. I just have to see how that offense really works out, how much of a step forward Bryce Young can really make. And for all of the weaknesses that the Saints possess, and they might get exposed a lot in the upcoming weeks, I'm not sure that the Panthers defense has the horses to really crush the pocket all day long. And yes, it's a new scheme for the Saints offense, but there's a lot of familiarity with Carr and his receivers. I expect that Taysom Hill will somehow be worked into the offense. Saw that fullback run the other day in the preseason game. And I think that the Panthers defense, like outside of Brown, Clowney, and Horn, is like really bad and could really be a bottom 5, bottom 7-ish defense. And I'm not really sure that the Saints offense cannot be in some fashion be successful against that defense. And on the other side, I don't really like the Saints defense. I agree with everything that Judah has said, but I think that it's still a very well-rounded defense. They don't strike me as a top 5 unit, but I think they are solid at most spots. I think that Dave Canellis will try to run the ball. I'm not sure that they will be able to be doing that against that Saints front seven. And outside of Deontay Johnson, I really have to see how a guy like Xavier Legette and Adam Thielen at 34 years old now will get open against that secondary. So I have not bet the Saints, but I have a lot of reservations about Carolina in this matchup, and I'm just being very cautious with that.
Yeah, and some value's been sucked out of the Panthers as well over the last day with some bets there. It's not the exact same, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just too optimistic because of my friendship with Eric, honestly, that I want Carolina to be so good. But I actually do think that they're way more competitive this year than we saw last year. Anyone have thoughts on the total in this game? 42 right now. I don't have a strong opinion. Anyone here? Anything?
I would lean towards the under.
Yeah.
I just don't see Panthers crushing it in week 1. And also, while I think the Saints can put up some points on the Panthers, I also don't think that we will see like a 30 burner from there.
All right. Before we get on to our next game here, I do want to remind everyone we got 300 concurrent watching right now. We got 100 likes. Please, if you're enjoying the content, smash that like button down below. Sends good signals out to YouTube, tells them to circulate our content to other people who like the NFL and like betting in the market as well. So please, if you can, take 2 seconds, smash that like button down below. Make sure you're subbed here to Forward Progress as well, as we are now going to move on to our third game here. The Jim Harbaugh era in LA is kicking off with a visit from the divisional rival, the Las Vegas Raiders. It was a brutal season for the Chargers. Justin Herbert was injured. The team finished at the bottom of the division. In comes Harbaugh off of his natty at Michigan, looking to turn the franchise around. On the other side of things, you have Antonio Pierce remaining on as head coach after he won over the team down the stretch. He's going to look to prove he's the right man for the job there. He's appointed Gardner Minshew as the team starter over Aiden O'Connell for this game. Looking at the market right now, Chargers are laying 3, minus 115 at home. I'll use home in quotation marks as it's likely going to sound like a Raiders home game at SoFi. Total in the game is sitting at 40.5. Hitman, I know you like one of the sides in this matchup. Who is it and why?
I like the Chargers at -3. Stop me or stop any of us if you've heard this before, but the Chargers, once again, were the most underperforming and probably unluckiest team in the NFL last year. Based on fourth quarter win probabilities, they should have been an 8-win team last year, despite the fact that they lost Justin Herbert for 4 games. Now, you can believe that the franchise is cursed, or you could say, it's a new regime with Jim Harbaugh, and maybe whatever they're doing in the past, losing all these close games, stuff changes. But it's mostly a play against Vegas. I've been down on them this entire offseason. I've bet the Raiders under season wins. I bet some alt under wins on the Raiders as well. I've bet some season-long props with under on their points scored, just a bunch of anti-Raiders stuff. I think that it's a below-average offensive line. It's a run-heavy team with a shaky running back situation. It's a league worst quarterback situation. I think that Antonio Pierce last year, a lot of the success was just a mirage of takeaways on defense and playing keep away on offense that I don't think long-term is going to be sustainable for this team. Gardner Minshew, obviously starting quarterback for the Raiders. This is a guy that since he entered the league in 2019, he ranks 34th in success rate per dropback, right behind Mac Jones and right ahead of Desmond Ridder. And this is a quarterback that is getting a massive downgrade in coaching from the last 2 years with the Eagles and the Colts staff to the Raiders staff. And one other thing, and this is a really small factor. The main factor is I just have the Raiders rated pretty low this season, and the Chargers I'm a little bit above market on, but there is a little bit of a revenge angle in this game with the Chargers. I know it's a different coaching staff from last year, but that was probably the most embarrassing loss of the season last year on that Thursday night game when Antonio Pierce came out at halftime saying, we're going to keep throwing, we're going to keep running the score up on them. So I think that that's just a small factor in this game that benefits Chargers, but the main handicap is just a power rating difference of mine where I'm really down on Vegas this year.
All right. How to win in the chat. Is their decision-making been evaluated in the fourth quarter? Maybe it's coaching and play calling. It certainly has been under past coaches for the Chargers. I could say that. But Judah, you wanted to make a case for the opposite side here. Is it down on the Chargers, a little bit higher than market on the Raiders? Maybe just the price in this game. Go ahead and talk us through it.
Yeah, I think it's a combo of both. And I disagree with Hitman here on the kind of substance of the Raiders' success. I don't think it was kind of a function of turnovers or something fluky. This was a team that was, especially over the second half of last season, generating perfect coverage at a top 10 rate. Perfect coverage is a situation where no coverage player effectively makes a mistake. Coverage is a weak link system. All you need is for one player to mess up, and the offense has a high likelihood of success. So the Raiders have done a great job there, in addition to being top 10 in pressure rate and kind of all of the underlying metrics that would sustain itself. And even just looking at the personnel group they have, like Max Crosby is one of the elite ends in this league. He's firmly in that category of like complete disruptors. Offenses have to really protect against the presence that he possesses. Not to mention they signed Christian Wilkins, which I think is particularly relevant in this matchup where, Joe Alt maybe can solidify the tackle position along with Rashawn Slater, but there's a lot of, I'll mention weak links again here. The Chargers interior are three weak links, which I think Christian Wilkins is really primed to kind of exploit. I just see this as a situation where Vegas has a pretty good defense and one that is underrated relative to market. And on the flip side, the Chargers offense is going through a scheme change, has multiple rookie receivers. No one really that can, Josh Palmer is like a wide receiver 3 on a good team, even though he actually can probably generate some separation against man. It's not kind of striking in any fear. And on the flip side, I think Gardner Minshew is totally capable. If you look at most of his efficiency metrics, it's going to be like somewhere in the 20 to 30 range. And this is a pretty quietly good situation for Vegas. Like Devontae Adams is getting older. He's still really good. Jacoby Myers, still a really good receiver. Brock Bowers is an incredible tight end prospect, one of the best we've seen in many years. And I also don't sleep on Trey Tucker. This is a guy who I think can turn into one of the best deep threats in the NFL. I do a lot of work kind of around wide receivers and their separation and their ability to win deep. And he's one of those guys who really pops. I think this is like a totally fine situation and one in which Gardner Minshew can be successful. And to look at the Chargers defense and see this as anything but a train wreck outside of like a really old Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, I think it's just a little bit foolish, frankly. This is a really terrible defense and one that I think is not primed to kind of test Gardner Minshew in ways that I just don't see the Raiders as struggling. I think they'll move the ball fine against the Chargers defense. I'm not going to go out here and advocate for him in a matchup against the Chiefs or the Ravens, but I think against the Chargers they should be plenty capable of moving the ball. And frankly, I don't understand the three here, other than like Justin Herbert's really good, but everything else around him is trash, frankly.
It's funny going through the comments as we're doing the breakdown of this game, because other than a comment that says Jim Harbaugh is my boy, everything has been negative about both teams. It's ripping something to do with the Chargers, something to do with the Raiders. And Suma, I'm curious where you rank these teams. I know you don't have a strong opinion on this game in particular, but either of these teams, can they outperform expectations? If one's more likely to do so, do you think it's the Chargers or the Raiders?
I would probably go with the Raiders. I just don't see it when I look at the rest of the Chargers roster outside of Justin Herbert. I echo a lot of what Judah has said. When I think about both teams coming out, Raiders offense, 12 personnel with Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, Davante Adams, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker. Like, what has the Chargers defense on the field to convince me that they're going to generate a ton of stops? I'm just struggling to see it. Yes, Denzel Perryman might help against the one, but other than that, their interior is pretty weak. I think that the Raiders can run the ball. Their secondary, outside of Devin James, doesn't match up really well with what the Raiders have. And yes, Gardner Minshew doesn't light the world on fire, but I think if they're able to run the ball and he doesn't really have to play hero ball, I also think that they can run the ball. On the other side, yes, the Chargers have an improved O-line. They most likely want to run the ball. That is probably strength on strength, because I really like that Raiders front seven, and I don't think that the Chargers have the horses at wide receiver or tight end to really disrupt that secondary. And the way I get to that number, and I'm pretty much on market, is really just the difference in quarterback play, because I'm really high on Justin Herbert. But other than that, it's really tough for me to make a convincing case for the Chargers.
Yeah, it's a challenging game for me as well. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the irresistible force paradox, but it's the old unstoppable force meets immovable object. And these teams are like the complete opposite of that. I just want nothing to do with either of them, in all honesty. A little bit biased from watching receivers on Netflix and having Davante Adams as part of that. Antonio Pierce, in my opinion, came across like a complete moron in that entire series. I have zero faith in the motivator coaches, although Tomlin has done it for years, so maybe I should have more faith in that. But I'm very concerned about the Raiders. I don't think that they hired the right long-term guy there. If I had to do anything in this game, I would be tempted to play the under if we ticked back up to 41 across the board for two reasons. And it's Greg Roman and Luke Getsy, who I think just really want to run the ball. I think you're going to see a lot of run, pass. I think you have two head coaches here that are very old school in the sense that they want their teams to assert dominance over the other. I could see this game being really physical type of game where both teams have a pretty strong run to pass ratio in this due to the head coaching and the offensive coordinators. I'm not sure the Chargers are equipped to stop anything in terms of their run defense over the past few years, but maybe Harbaugh puts an emphasis on that in the offseason and things have changed a little bit. So very, very small lean to the under, but would not play it at the current market prices. Before we get into our last game here, for anyone who enjoys this content here on Forward Progress, we also have a sister channel that focuses on college football. It's called Hit the Books with Brad Powers and Joey Knish. They go live every Monday and Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. It honestly pains me to promote anything that Knish is involved in, but the show is truly the best out there in the college football space. No exaggeration. Tons of good info, entertaining banter, plenty of interaction from the audience. Make sure you check it out. That's Hit the Books. You can check it out on YouTube. You can listen in audio form after the fact as well, wherever you listen to your podcasts. But make sure you do it for Powers at the very least, not for Knish, but check it out for Powers. All right, our fourth and final game here before we get into futures and best bets. This is a good one. It is Sunday Night Football. It is a rematch of last season's playoff game between the Lions and Rams. Some think the Lions could be Super Bowl bound this season. Others think they might have missed their opportunity. Regardless, they are considered one of the favorites to emerge from the NFC. Very little roster turnover from last year. The Lions have been on their way up over the last few years. The Rams have kind of been retooling in the wake of their Super Bowl victory a few years back. The jury's still out on whether or not they are ready to contend again, or if there's still too many question marks, especially in the wake of Aaron Donald's surprise retirement. Taking a look at this game right now, there's been a little bit of back and forth over the past few days, but markets kind of settled at Lions, 3.5-point favorites. Total in the game pretty high, 51.5, juice towards the under at Fanduel. Suma, you can get this one started for us. Sunday Night Football, Rams and Lions.
I think this matchup would have been much more favorable for the Rams if it would have been played later in the year. I think right now I have too many concerns for them in this specific matchup. They lost Aaron Donald, and when you look at this defensive depth chart, I mean, everyone knows what their strategy is, but I don't see how they can get any stuff against this Lions offense. I mean, two rookies along the defensive line with two other, at least two other sophomore players, undrafted free agent linebacker after they got rid of Ernest Jones. Again, I get behind the strategy from a roster building perspective, but I think this is on paper one of the worst defenses in the league. Last year, they had a few intriguing pieces. I think Raheem Morris did a good job. Aaron Donald was still nuts. But right now, I think that the defense got worse throughout the offseason. And while they beefed up their offensive line, I mean, two players might not be playing. John Noteboom is playing at left tackle. Alec Jackson is suspended. Rob Havenstein is not a guarantee to play. Jonah Jackson has been out of practice for 3 weeks, and now 1 week before the season, they are switching him to center, a position that he has last played, I think, in 2017. Puka Nacua has been out for a long time with an injury. We are not sure whether he's at 100%. Cooper Kupp is getting older. I think that 6 or 7 weeks from now, this Rams offense will be perfectly fine and they might play close to a top 5 level. I would not be surprised, but I think right now in week 1, I have too many concerns that they can really go toe to toe in what could be a shootout with a very high total. I think Detroit is going to have a very strong offensive performance. And I'm just not seeing it. This Rams offense has always relied on good offensive line play. Now they are kind of banked up, and we don't know how well or how healthy Puka Nacua is. I'm really struggling to find too many reasons to back the Rams here. The Lions have arguably gotten more talent on defense since the playoff game. DJ Reader, probably a true coin flip to play, but they got a lot of talent in the secondary. I'm still not high on their defense, but it's also hard to fathom them being worse in the secondary than they have been last year. And yeah, offensively, I'm super sold. There are no injury concerns with them. I think the Lions offense will roll, and I don't see the Rams keeping pace. I like Detroit -3.5.
Hitman, I know you had thoughts on this game as well. You agreeing with Suma here, or are you opposite?
Yeah, I'm going to repeat a lot of what Suma said. The Rams' offensive line injuries are really concerning, with Alaric Jackson, their left tackle, suspended. Jonah Jackson has missed a chunk of camp, and they're talking about maybe switching up the offensive line, playing guys at different positions. Rob Havenstein is questionable for this game. Stafford's been banged up. Nakua's been banged up. Kyron Williams, who's had some chronic foot issues in his career, was banged up in the offseason with a foot. So it's just been a lot of issues health-wise for the Rams. And as Suma said, it's just really hard for me to see how the Rams defense, which was 21st in EPA per play last year, that lost Aaron Donald and Raheem Morris, gets many stops against them. The Lions defense made some pretty big additions. DJ Reader, who had massively important splits when he was on and off the field with the Bengals. He might not play in this game, but if he is out there, that's a big addition. And obviously they overhauled a pass funnel secondary with Carlton Davis and used their top 2 picks on corners. And just a little bit of eye test from watching the game last year. The Rams, that game, like Matthew Stafford, the big time throws that he made in that game was like absolutely ridiculous. And I kind of feel like it's just going to take they're so outmatched personnel wise at so many aspects of this game, both sides of the line of scrimmage, that it's really going to take another hero effort from Stafford in this game. And I mean, I'm the president of the Matthew Stafford fan club. Is it in his range of outcomes that he has one of those games behind a banged up offensive line? Yeah, it is. But I'll bet against it, and I'll lean towards Detroit as well in this game.
We got a couple comments in the chat here that are centered around the Lions secondary. SK says, are you not worried about the Lions' unproven secondary in this matchup? Dan Rivera says the Lions secondary is new and unproven. Jude, I'll throw it to you here because that seems to be maybe the most exploitable matchup for the Rams in this game. Is that cause for concern, or are you agreeing with Suma and Hitman here?
I mean, everyone's new and unproven, and every secondary is kind of new and unproven in some way. It's one of the least stable parts of football is secondary play year over year. And frankly, I don't think that's kind of the main matchup here. I think it's kind of as Suma outlined, really, of the Rams offensive line holding up against the Lions defensive line. And I'm not sure they can. I definitely like the Lions here.
All right. Interesting. I'm gonna make it kind of like a clean sweep across the board here. Lots of great points by everyone that's been mentioned in the chat. Michael says Donald's loss is huge for that defense. Tough to quantify. He created one-on-ones for the other D linemen. I agree it's tough to quantify. It's also something that I tried really hard to do in the offseason. I think that defensive line is overrated. Kobe Turner's a great player. Same deal with Bobby Brown. He's good, but like when you watch the tape, the amount of double teams that Aaron Donald had on him, it just opens up space for everyone around him. This is a game this week where I think the Lions can dominate both lines of scrimmage. And I really like to bet teams that are in that type of situation. I love the Lions offensive line. I don't think the Rams are really going to be able to disrupt them at all. You give Ben Johnson time to scheme things up. Jared Goff can make those throws at home, especially in the dome. I do think the Lions are going to score here. And on the other side of the ball, I have serious concerns about the Rams O-line holding up, especially at left tackle against Aiden Hutchinson. If DJ Reader can go, that's a bonus, because I think that takes Kieran Williams out of the game quite a bit as well for the Rams and the possibility of just running at will. So I'm going to make it a clean sweep here. I like the Lions. I know a lot of people are in here asking, like, please go to 3 Lions. I think the problem is if it does go to 3, it just gets hit right away anyways. I don't think that's going to survive long if it's around there. I think a lot of people are waiting for that. But there we go. Clean sweep across the board in the final game that we're going to cover this week. But we're going to shift here into a little bit of futures talk, which we haven't done before on the Best Bet Show. There's a friendly competition this year. Suma, Hitman, myself. We're going to assemble a futures portfolio over the course of the season. We're giving out one futures pick every single week. And our guest, going to be Judah this week. We'll react to those at the end of, well, I said friendly competition. That's probably not the best choice of words because there's nothing worse than losing to Hitman at anything. There's nothing friendly about this at all, I would say. I'm putting a lot of effort into this. So we're going to take turns locking in futures plays here for week 1. Could be any future market listed at Fanduel. There are a ton of options right now. No excuses for any of us. Hitman, we'll give you the honors here first. You're locking in a futures bet in week 1.
Steelers under 8.5 wins. Short and sweet quarterback situation obviously is terrible. The lack of playmakers with George Pickens being really the only serviceable pass catcher that they have this year. And this is a George Pickens that's going into an offense with Arthur Smith that didn't exactly showcase their top playmakers last season. They've had a few recent offensive line injuries as well. This is a team that I know year after year, they keep winning these close games, and you want to say that's just sustainable, that they're going to continue to go 9-2 in close games like they did last year, but I do not think it's a sustainable formula. They had a negative 20-point differential last year, despite their winning record. And at the end of the day, somebody in that division has to finish under 500. And I don't think it's going to be the Ravens. I don't think it's going to be the Bengals. And I'm a little bit higher in market on the Browns this year than some other people. So it's probably going to be Pittsburgh. Sorry, Mike Tomlin. It's your first losing season.
Hitman going against the Mike Tomlin voodoo. Also noticeable that he took a minus 170 out of the gate here. Just want to point that out to the
There's
audience.
There's gonna be one. Don't worry.
We're not counting record here, Hitman. This is total units at the end of the year.
And do you really think at this point
unit.
and also, do you really think at this point I'm worried about my record? It's gonna you know what would have to happen for me to get back to 500? I've given that dream up. So no, it's just a play that I like.
All right, Hitman, down on the Steelers. Suma, it's on you for this one.
Okay, I'm going to quickly unmirror my camera. Can you see this? I'm going to go old GRP style here with my small notebook. Green Bay Packers over 9.5 wins, minus 138. I am higher on Green Bay than market. I'm really, really optimistic about their offense. I think that last season, first half of the season, they struggled. Second half of last season, John Love improved. Whole offense improved. Everything clicked together. From week 11 onward, they were the number one offense by EPA per dropback. And they basically showed us that they are capable of playing at a very high ceiling. And that was with a full receiving group of rookies and second-year players. Christian Watson missed half of the season. Luke Musgrave, who was very, very promising, was basically absolutely cooked after week 11. Bo Melton had a start in week 17 or something. And now this whole group gets another year under their belt. I'm super high on Matt LaFleur. I think the offensive line will be fine. Packers it's basically maybe the most underrated job in the NFL over the past couple of seasons. Their O-line evaluation and development. I think that offense has the potential to be a top 3 offense this year. And I think that there are a lot of winnable games on their schedule. I think they should win double digits. And with their defense, I'm not sure it can get worse than last year. I think there's some upside case to be made with the new DC. They might just generate more turnovers by being aggressive on third down. And yeah, overall, I'm pretty high on the Packers, going with them winning double-digit games.
All right. Suma goes with the Packers over. We could have picked anything on the board. We ended up with 3 win totals here, but I'm actually going to the alt win totals market myself. And I'm going to take some shots this year. The theme of today's show is the Eric Eager effect. I'm taking the Panthers alternate win total over 7.5 plus 250. In Eager, we trust. But in all seriousness, I thought they had a great offseason. I thought that they already have a good starting cornerback combo. Mike Jackson, JC Horn. Derek Brown is a stud. Jadeveon Clowney, to me, is one of the more underrated players in the league because people just look at the sack totals, but he does a lot of things right. They still have a lot of holes to fill on defense, but I don't think it's quite as bad as people make it out to be. Damian Lewis, Robert Hunt at guard now. They're set at right tackle. If Ike Ekwonu takes a step forward this year, they could have a good O-line that's much better for Bryce Young, but I also like the coaching staff changes. I think Dave Canales being there and the fact that he's already fixed Geno and Baker, I at least am optimistic that he can fix Bryce Young, who had a horrendous year last year. So I think the Panthers do have some upside. I'm also down on the other teams in the division. Obviously, that's 6 games for them as well. I'll take their over 7.5 wins. Judah, we have 3 win totals here. Steelers, Panthers, Packers. We need your thoughts. Break it down.
Yeah, I think a lot of the analysis here. I would question why you guys aren't kind of leaning further into the angles. Rob, I'm surprised we're not betting an 11-1 division here. Or even Hitman, like if the wheels are coming off in Pittsburgh, they're coming off, right? It's like the magic's gone. We're looking at a 5-win team, not like one that kind of goes 6 or 7. I would just kind of further lean into these angles. So I do agree with the analysis. And Suma, I think you're absolutely right about the Packers defense can't get much worse. And I think that the Joe Barry firing at defensive coordinator is kind of one of the sneaky important moves of the offseason. And that team should be a lot better. But why not be a little more bullish in the actual bets?
You know, it's actually a valid point. Could have gone 11-1 division for the Panthers. I could have easily done that. I pretty much could have bet the Panthers in any way possible. In all honesty, I'm so much higher to market on them than anything else. I think it's a fair criticism, honestly.
Yeah. Also, if you want long shot future picks, there's a guy on Twitter that writes down all of his long shots in a notebook that maybe you want to follow. So if you think that he knows what he's doing, that's your guy for the long shots.
The bloody notebook. Yeah. I mean, listen, Judah's going to be part of the Forward Progress team all year long, and he certainly leans into some long shots now and then. So I would definitely tail whenever he throws something out there. All right. We're going to conclude our show today with best bets. But before we do, we have tons of content for you on Forward Progress this year, including live watch-alongs of every Thursday, Sunday, and Monday night football game this season with myself, the rest of our team, some special guests as well. We got Hitman dropping a prop-specific video every Saturday. We got Judah, Suma, Cleve TA, Eric Pauly live every Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, giving their first thoughts on the upcoming week. It's a lot going on this year. So make sure, if you're not subbed here to Forward Progress, hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on bell notifications so you get notified whenever a new video drops, and smash that like button down below while you're at it as well. We're hoping that this will be a great year. Tons of content planned all around. So normally we start with last week's winners first on best bets. We're in a fresh new season. We're going to work top to bottom from last year's record. This gives me an opportunity to pat myself on the back and go first as well. So I'll start it off here with my bet. We're going to Monday Night Football. And this might be one of the worst arguments I've ever made for a bet in my entire life, because this is pure subjective gut feeling. I'm taking the San Francisco 49ers in the first half against the New York Jets, -2.5, -125. I will pay for Aaron Rodgers, the 40-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury, who didn't play in the preseason with his offensive weapons, to beat me, because I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Jets will struggle early on in the season. There's reason to be optimistic about the Jets in the long run. They've upgraded their offensive line. Defense is still going to be solid, although I would argue that it's slightly overrated based off of the quality of quarterbacks they've played over the past couple of seasons. When they have taken a step up in class, especially on the road, they have given up some big totals, big point totals to good offenses. But this is just about the Jets struggling out of the gate. You could pick another derivative if you wanted to. Jets first half under points, first quarter 49ers. But the general premise is that the New York Jets offense is going to struggle here at the beginning of the season. The San Francisco 49ers, to me, yeah, Brock Purdy struggled a bit in preseason. You know, you're missing Trent Williams. Brandon Ayuk didn't play, but there's a lot of familiarity there. And also you have Kyle Shanahan, who's one of the best schemers in the entire league, going up against Bob Saleh and Nathaniel Hackett on the other side. I know who I'm going to trust in the early going of a game. 49ers, first half, -2.5, -125 on Monday Night Football. Judah, you are in the guest spot. You're replacing Dr. Eric Eager. You have a lot of pressure to give out a winner in your debut, and you're going a little bit off the board here. Who's it going to be and why?
Yeah, I'm taking the Detroit Lions -9.5 at +200. We bet long shots. That's what we do. And I think it kind of really plays into a particular game script here. We talked, I think you guys talked before about the Rams like atrophying on defense. Like losing Aaron Donald is a massive deal. This is an all-world player who to I think everyone's point is like going to have a lot of second order effects along the defensive line. Raheem Morris matters a lot. A lot of coverage is kind of determined by the positions that a defensive coordinator or defensive play caller puts you into. And like, I think they lost probably two of the kind of most important assets on their defense, not to mention losing linebacker last week. This is a team that was really, really bad. And I think that is particularly interesting in this matchup, given that Jared Goff has been incredible in what I chart is called disruption, which is effectively when either pressure gets a quarterback off his read or there is perfect coverage. So when one of those two things happen, we can call it disruption. And this was a Rams team that was already really bad last year, only generating disruption like 35% of the time, which is a bottom mark in the league. But but they lost Aaron Donald. They lost Raheem Morris. Like, that perfect coverage rate's going to go down. That pressure disruption, Donald was by far the best on the team. That's going to go down. And this is precisely the area where Jared Goff and the Lions have excelled. It's really a kind of a proxy for scheme. He was top 3 in EPA. It's been this way for years. And when we look at the general context of week 1, there's a ton of uncertainty. But the Lions are kind of the team that, like, we really have a good sense of who they are. This is the 3rd year now of a quarterback, head coach, OC combo. The personnel is largely the same. They've got O-line continuity, 4 or 5 guys. They brought in Kevin Zeitler. He should be fine to replace Jonah Jackson. They've got very similar receivers. We know who they are, and they're really good. They're going to be top 5 in kind of most efficiency metrics. They're going to score points. The Lions are a team that front runs you. I think like 8 or 9 of their wins were by 10-plus points. They keep their foot on the gas. You look at the Rams on the other side. It's a team that really relies on their run game to kind of set up a lot of their passing plays. This is a Lions rush defense that was top 5 last year. If DJ Reader goes, even better this unit should be. I just love the kind of mismatch along these two teams, and especially looking at how the game plays out. This is a Lions offense that is going to score a ton of points, I think. This is a pass rush that is going to cause problems for the Rams offensive line, which is weak, not healthy. I just kind of see this as a spot where the wheels really fall off, and Detroit kind of keeps the pedal to the metal and runs the score up.
Super Square in the chat. Big fan of that one. Judah with the plus 200 best bet. This show has been reinvented. You could take notes, Hitman. You don't have to give out minus 170s on everything. The plus 200 is totally fine. We'll leave it to Hitman at the end. Suma, it's on to you next. You're going with the Friday game in Brazil. Make your case.
Oh, yes. I got to piggyback on what I said on the future section. Green Bay money line plus 122. I like Green Bay here. My number is closer to pick 'em. Like I said, I'm very high on the Packers offense. I think that I pretty much know what I will be getting from them. And when I look at this Eagles defense, yes, they got Vic Fangio. Looks like a monumental upgrade on paper, but he also has to get the bodies to really play successful defense. And outside of D-line, I don't think that Philly has that. I could be wrong. That they might surprise me, and those guys in the secondary play much better. But Darius Slay is 33 and a half years old. Isaiah Rodgers hasn't played since December 2022. Kenyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean are rookies, just to name a few. Their linebacking group has been very bad for a long time now, and I think that Matt LaFleur will call one heck of a game that really exploits those defenses. I don't see how the Eagles secondary matches up with those Green Bay receivers running wide open on like play action and screen stuff and stuff like that. And I really think that the Packers offense will have a very strong game against that defense. And then on the other side, I mean, when let's say you are going to model like personnel on the field, I think that you will end up very high on the Eagles. And I'm also very optimistic on them going into the season. But I want to see how this interior plays without Jason Kelce. I want to see how Jalen Hurts plays in that new scheme that might be a little bit different from what he's used to be. The Packers defense, they, like I said, don't strike me as a very good unit, but I think it can't be worse than last year. And if they open the gates of hell on third down, that was something that Jalen Hurts did not play very well against last year. 0.07 EPA per play, only a 45% success rate against the blitz last year was around league average. I think that with guys like Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, Devontae Wyatt, they might have the horses to disrupt the interior of the Eagles pocket. And I'm just not sure how well they can really install a new scheme after struggling for major stretches last year. They did not play up to their ceiling in so many games. And while I'm optimistic long term, I think that they will need some time to gel. And going into a potential shootout. I know that a lot of sharp people like the over here. I'm not sure that the Eagles can keep pace. And yeah, long story cut short, I think plus 122 on the money line is a little bit too high, and I like Green Bay.
All right, that'll be the first pick that goes off for us this year. Friday night in Brazil. Hitman, you can't erase last season. It's going to live on in the books forever, in people's notebooks all over the world. But you can write a new script for this season. We already have the shocks. I am blind tailing every Hitman pick this year. The confidence is there from the chat. Now it's on you to come through with the winning pick. First one of the season. What is it and why?
All right. I like the Vikings money line against the Giants. I'm pretty high on Minnesota in general this year. I've played them over 6.5 wins as well. The Kevin O'Connell system had a lot of success last year with guys like Josh Dobbs and guys like Nick Mullins at points in December last year, had an over-under of 270 passing yards. Like, this was an offense that was moving the ball despite a ton of injuries last year. And they were really just killed by being 31st in turnover differential. Sam Darnold, the last time that we got to see him play extensively at the end of 2022, he was second in the NFL in yards per pass attempt over that stretch. Now, do I think Sam Darnold is even close to an average starting quarterback? No, I don't. But I'm putting a lot of faith in the supporting cast that Minnesota has with a strong offensive line, good wide receivers, good running backs, and a good play caller. On the other hand, the defense for the Vikings, was not a talented defense at all last year, but they were just able to scheme their way to being 17th in EPA per play. And they did this while they were facing the third toughest schedule of opposing quarterbacks last year. And they're going against a Giants offensive line that was 31st in pressure rate allowed last year. The Giants, on the other hand, they led the NFL in EPA gained off turnovers, so the complete opposite of Minnesota. They had the best turnover differential in the league, yet they only won 6 games. Their point differential last year was minus 141. They were the worst team in the league with a minus 82 yards per game yardage differential per game. I mean, essentially again, Daniel Jones was out for a stretch, and that's important, but this was a 4-5 win team that the Giants were last year. So I just made this game closer to 3. I think it's a clear tier mismatch with Minnesota and the Giants. So give me the road favorite to try to get the record to a outstanding 1-0.
The Hitman Redemption Tour starts now with the Minnesota Vikings. Funny chat here, comment here from Chris. Alex Moretto, a big Vikings fan. Moretto off screen pointing a gun at him and telling him to gas up the Vikings. But that's going to do it for our show. We wrap up our first episode of the season. If you do enjoy the content we put out there, my one ask of you, spread the word. Friends, family, whoever it may be, coworkers. We pride ourselves on delivering quality content and being true to ourselves in the process. Anything you can do to help us grow is greatly appreciated. Also, make sure to check out Fanduel if you haven't already. For myself, Rob Pizzola, for Suma, for Hitman, for Judah making his debut, our producer, Jason Cooper, who makes this all happen behind the scenes. This has been Forward Progress Week 1 Best Bets Edition. Everyone, good luck with your bets this week.